Greetings. I like this delay it gives me in the setup here at the very beginning. It kind of like makes it more challenging for one to make it look like I don't have to do goofy things to set up. Tom, are you there?
Yep.
It's good morning to you, isn't it?
Afternoon in 3 minutes.
Afternoon in 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. It's morning now.
Live from Sydney, Australia. I know we're like 3 minutes early, but let's let people see if we're live on our custom service, it says. So let's get a kind of confirmation from Rihanna. Hi, guys. Tom, what are you up to?
Oh, ordering food online for the first time. Getting your groceries delivered. I've never done it before because like Sydney's a place where you can like walk 5 minutes to the grocery shop and just get what you want and carry it home, you know. And can't really do that. So it's like the first time I've actually had to work out, you know, where everything is on a online thing. And yeah, it's like the shop is just like, you know, across the road kind of thing, but they're still going to have to bring it in a truck.
So you're on full lockdown there too. You guys have had horrible fires and now you've got to go straight into lockdown.
Yeah. Yeah. Except we're like one of the few countries in the world where we're actually talking about, you know, coming out the other end. We're like now, when are we going to basically opening everything up again? Because there's like three new cases yesterday, and no one's dying at the moment. So, you know, we're kind of lucky. We're at the moment. And now we're all carrying around these apps on the phones. So you've got this app on my phone now that basically tracks where I am and tells people, you know, whether I've been in contact with somebody. So, you know, we're all carrying around these little magic wands, see if we're safe or not.
We don't have that here yet, do we?
No.
I mean,
No, you got bleach.
Yeah, no, it's like we're exactly, we're onto the bleach, but we don't have the tracking yet. Yeah, it seems kind of barbaric. Yeah, I can't get used to this yet. I don't hope that we don't have to get used to this, but Rihanna went to the store today and she was saying that there's some sense of order coming together with all of this.
Yeah.
People can only go single file down an aisle and only face a certain direction.
Yeah.
You can only be checked out in a certain manner where you're facing a certain way. And all of these rules and regulations are like, you know, nothing in our lifetime we've ever seen before, but I guess we're learning quick. So the next phase of everything seems to be unguessable. What's your best guess?
Well, you know, I don't want to be I don't want to be harsh, but no one's ever come up with a cure or a inoculation for a coronavirus ever before. There is no answer. There is no end really at this point. And it kind of like, you know, I come from a family of doctors. And so I'm talking to my sister and, you know, she's a doctor and brother-in-law's doctor. And it's basically, you're going to have to open up and then it get bad. And then you're going to close it down and then open it up and let it get bad and close it down and keep doing that until enough people are infected.
Right.
Unfortunately, that it's kind of in the community, but there's no quick fix for it at all. And you know, it might be like this, like, okay, I'm going to be really mean here and say it could be like this for 2 years.
I don't think that's mean. I think that's pretty reasonable, actually.
I think that's high end. That's high end.
Scientific approach, yeah.
But the kind of interesting thing is like Australia and New Zealand at the moment, because we've both got it under control. We're talking about sort of joining up and making a kind of bigger area. And I'm hearing that like California and Oregon and Washington are like making this kind of mega state with borders closed around them. And then, you know, so you're going to end up with these kind of enclaves, like, you know, in those sort of post-apocalyptic films, you've got somebody's got a place called Radiation City and somebody else has got like, you know, the League of Supermen or some shit like that. And that may be these kind of super states like carving themselves out with all the people who, you know, who aren't taking care of it, locked out on the outside. I don't know.
Yeah, New Zealand's done a fabulous job with their lockdown.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're looking at it from, see, but they've tried to actually like completely stop it. And the problem with that is that if it ever opens up, if it ever goes for it, then they're screwed. You know, so what we're doing here is we've like actually got it down. I mean, we've had less than 100 deaths in the whole country.
man, that's amazing.
But we're going to allow it to kind of roll along a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit, and see how we go. I mean, the hospitals were so empty. We were so ready for it that they closed down absolutely everything. And, you know, people I know have been in hospital and been in wards where like the entire ward's empty. And the doctors are just basically doing rehearsals because we were ready for 3,000 people and we've had, right, you know.
I think that similarly happened in LA, but now we're starting to see a pickup in the cases here.
Yeah.
And then we're realizing that the number of tested versus the, you know, the number that is showing infected, the ratio is actually pretty high considering how little the people have been tested. So we don't actually.
Yeah, well, you guys might have had it for like since last year.
Well, actually, Rihanna feels she did have it.
Yeah.
And she was just complaining it was the worst. She couldn't move. I mean, she had not the typical, right? Not the typical. And then another buddy of mine too, you know, Paul. He also claimed that he had the worst. Every symptom. He went to the hospital, and it didn't even show as being the flu.
Yeah.
And so they were testing him for pneumonia. It didn't come up as pneumonia. So wonder what it was.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because it has been floating around for that long.
Yeah, I think it's been floating around. I think if you've got a strong connection with Asian cities, I mean, obviously, you know, Sydney is very much, it looks like an Asian city these days. The way that Vancouver looks like an Asian city these days. And I suppose LA to a certain extent has got a bit of that in there. And I think we've been connected with this thing for actually longer than people know. But I mean, we're not doctors, we're musicians. And like the question is, what the fuck do we do now? You know, where do we go? What do we do?
We can go back in time.
Yeah.
Start with like happy 35-year anniversary with basically, actually 36, because I have right here a letter you wrote me in 1984. Look at that, 1984.
Why are you keeping that shit?
Well, I would always do things like where I would just tuck it inside. You know, they have the thing. I would tuck it inside the record.
Yeah.
And it became, and of course you wrote it on the back of the technical manual.
Yeah, well, I had hundreds of that shit sitting around the place, so I may as well use it as writing paper.
Actually, I have one of those too, and it's amazing because you were talking about, you know, babies and basketball programming, like way before it was actually really being truly done.
No. You see, that's, I don't know about you, but I was protected by ignorance. Now, ignorance is a beautiful force, and I see it with my students all the time. You know, they don't know that all of this shit was done back in like 1930, 1940, 1950. The more you know about music, the more you realize that all kinds of interesting things were happening long ago. But because you're pig ignorant, you reinvent. No, seriously, you reinvent all this stuff. If I'd known about, you know, musique concrète, if I'd known about Wagner, if I'd known about all of this stuff,
right,
I would have said, oh, I can't do this. Somebody's already done that. Somebody's already done that. It's, you know, and you'd be criticizing yourself on the basis of this enormous history. But because you're as dumb as fuck and isolated and you're in your own little world, you're basically like banging two rocks together and you're thinking you're coming up with something. And in a way you are, even though it is derivative. It's important to be derivative sometimes. You know, you cannot be the font of everything new.
You've always been incredibly modest. And sometimes it hides, like you don't want to say, man, you were on to things way before many people. And I'll never forget the first time I heard this album. I mean, I had to listen to it 2 or 3 times because of the sounds, just the general approach
Yeah.
that you guys had at the time. It was like completely changed my entire palette and my brain, the way that I thought. And I know it did the same to Ogre, and I know it did the same to Bill Lee, and anybody that we knew that listened to it, they were just instantly entranced with what
But it
world
wasn't, it wasn't,
that's scoped out.
I don't think it was actually, look, I think that the difference was that not that we were doing anything new, but I think we were good natured about it. I think the thing was, up to that point, making all that racket was in some way a kind of like the whole industrial thing was this sort of miserable, everything's fucked, I'm fucked, noises are making a fucked, all that sort of stuff. And we weren't that. We were basically into like Magilla Gorilla and you know, Scooby Doo and just sort of stupid shit with the same intensity. I don't see. You can't see it from the inside. That's part of the problem. But we were responding to a lot of stuff before, you know, we came along. Really.
So, I remember some stories you used to tell me. You were helping out with Graham.
Yeah, well,
from SBK, and did that just really set you off as being like, well, I can see what's going on here, but I definitely don't want to get into carrying around buckets of blood, skulls, and the rest of that.
Well, look. Okay, so I'm kind of.
You end up on tour with Skinny Puppy.
I'm gonna kind of like, you know, I have to edit personal shit here. But Gary Bradbury was a very, very close friend of Neil Hill, who was the main person in the early SBK thing. Graham Revell was always, you know, it was Graham and Neil were the partnership, but Graham was, I think, more about the politics of it, and Neil was more about the music. And so, you know, Gary and Neil were living together. And they basically had a very strong connection. So SBK and Severed Heads were always very entwined as people who lived in the same town. You know, it's like if you were from, I'm sure Vancouver at the time was very tight.
Yeah, everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody, but you know, if I needed a tape recorder, like when we were making Since the Accident, I needed a tape recorder that recorded the sort of thing that you could actually cut records from. And SBK had one of them, but when they wanted to play live at the Brickworks, they needed a PA, and I had that. So you would just swap stuff back and forth. We never actually overlapped in terms of the thought patterns of they were very serious. They had a political viewpoint at the time, quickly abandoned, but they had one. We were basically of Throbbing Gristle had this statement, which was, "Is the world as sad as it seems?" To which I would think, and I think Gary would also agree, is the world as stupid and fucked up and ridiculous as it seems? Which is in a way more positive, but it's also more accurate. I mean, things are just stupid. And so we always had this kind of like stupid, shambolic, collapsing, funny, tongue-in-cheek kind of thing going on, whereas they were really like, you know, evil, sad. The whole industrial thing for us was, you know, not sustainable. It was not true. It wasn't real, whereas stupidity is real. So, you know, I think that's the major difference right there.
And you had one of the originators right there that you were in, you know, always being witness to the Industrial Records SBK.
Yeah.
What, you know, so you say you kind of like had a level of absurdity you were trying to express.
Yeah. I mean, like for a start, you know, we were recording our first album when I was 16. And, you know, I was still at school. I mean, you know, we were in our school pants making that shit, you know, and I was working with a guy called Richard Fielding.
Right.
So it was Richard was there first, and then I got involved. I mean, the story is Richard's got a synthesizer, and I had all these tape recorders, which I'd got when I was about 14 or 15 years old. I was in a tape recorders, you know, open reel thing. And he liked my tape recorders and I liked his synthesizers. So we basically swapped. So I got into the keyboard and he got into the tape sort of thing. And then we needed a band name because we'd made a tape and we're going to send it to the local radio station. And we're trying to think of the most stupid name that we could come up with. And so we called ourselves Mr. and Mrs. No Smoking Sign for quite a while, because that's just ugly and stupid, and no one wants to be called that, you know.
Well, that's perfect.
Well, yeah, and then we made another recording, and at that stage, it was Richard who said, you know, oh, we should pretend to be industrial. And I said, oh, what you want to be? What do you want to be? Oh, I don't know. I said, well, what about Severed Heads? That's a really stupid fucking name. And he went, yeah, let's do that one. So we wrote that on the cassette and sent it to the radio station. And like the whole mythology that comes from this is like, oh yeah, you were this, you were that, the other thing. It's a bunch of kids in school uniforms making up prank tapes and sending them out to radio. And you know, my internal shame is that we didn't change it after that, but you know, we did.
But you had a very unique direction. Some like the combination of you and Richard and Gary. Was it the trio that was essentially responsible for Blubber Knife and or?
Yeah, Blubber. Yeah. Well, no. Well, Richard was. He wasn't really interested in music. Well, no. He would call things rockist. That would be rockist, you know, like, oh, you've got equipment, that's rockist. Oh, we're playing a gig, that's rockist. You know, we don't want to do that. So he very quickly splintered off and had a band called the Nobodies. And the Nobodies were all these tape recorders. He had like about 20 tape recorders, and they would all be just doing their thing. And he was the roadie. He was the roadie for them. He'd bring them into the venue, set them up, leave, and wait an hour and then come back and then pick them up and take them away again. That was Richard's idea about how to be a band. And it's kind of interesting because he later on joined other bunch of people and started a thing called the Loop Orchestra. So these guys would all come in, as many as 10 of them, with these open reel tape recorders and do all this tape recorder stuff with them. So he actually ended up being in something which was much more kind of avant-garde than what we were doing. Whereas Gary and I would actually do music. We were musicians, kind of. So the kind of example of that was we did a performance at a nightclub with SPK. SPK were the main thing. We came on and we had a tape recorder on stage, which we'd put loops on, and the loops would play, and then we'd play along with that loop and then take that loop off and put another loop, which we called Rocket Summer. And that's what ended up on Blubber Knife. Blubber Knife is actually just a kind of documentation of that.
Oh, wow.
But you know, Gary's all about glam rock. He likes Slade and you know, T-Rex and all that sort of stuff. You know, me, I'm more into I don't know. I do pretty things, I guess. Don't know.
So 35 years ago, this year in June, yeah. Would that have been your first North American show at the Love Affair that?
Yeah.
We've somehow convinced Network to endorse and to put on at the Love Affair.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I was in England because we had an English record label.
Ink Records. Right?
Yeah, Ink Records, God bless them. And, you know, Mark Jowett had flown over and he was trying to shop Network stuff to all these labels, and I think he'd ended up at Ink after everyone else had turned him down. And so he's having a meeting with the guy who runs the label, and he's I've got this band called Skinny Puppy, and Dave goes, no, it's a bit goth, not into goth. He said, oh, what about this band Mauve? And he goes, oh yeah, that's okay. We'll put out that Mauve record, but you have to put out one of ours. And so he said, okay, well, I'll swap you Mauve for Severed Heads. And he said, yeah, fine. Because it was like poppy and, you know, la, la, la. And so then, it was the early stuff. And basically it was like, we'll do a swap. You'll put out one of yours. I'll put out one of mine. And then I don't know why, but it was kind of like, well, you know, okay, if you're in London, you got to fly back to Sydney. You may as well fly London to Vancouver to Sydney. And yeah, we all agreed to that. It was fine, except I had absolutely no equipment or fucking anything to perform. Apart from that, was great. Brilliant idea.
I remember you had
just shut up in fucking Vancouver with no music or anything and play live by myself. You know?
Did you have an Oscar synth in your suitcase?
Yeah, I got that for like £50.
Man, what a stuff. It was beautiful.
It was a piece of shit.
I know. Since then, you and Stuart have set me right about that. You won't let me like it anymore.
No, Stuart Lawler loves all this analog stuff.
He told me that's a piece. Sorry, I don't approve of it anymore. We had to get rid of that one.
Right, fine. Well, I had an Oscar. Yeah. And I think if you want an Oscar, you get a Base Station 2 because the same guy made it.
Right on. I didn't know that.
Yeah, of course. It's Huggins, you know, Chris Huggins is, I think I've got that name right. You know, there was the Oscar was made by the same guy who's made the Base Station 2.
I did not know that.
Which is, it's got all that sort of hidden coding shit built into it that the Oscar's got built into it.
Really?
And it's got a sequencer and it's duophonic and blah, blah, blah. It's a beautiful piece of equipment. And you can get one for about $400, you know. So why would you want an Oscar?
Let's monitor right now the eBay sales right now on the used Innovation base stations. Everyone's going to rush out and buy them. You shouldn't have said that too loud. No, that's great information to always know. And then, so I had a question.
Yeah, go for it.
We had a question earlier from somebody already pre-online that said, how did you make that snare and assimilate? And I was thinking, well, the story has to be said that, you know, we had never in our lives conceived the idea of using pillow hits or oof sounds as snare drums or percussive hits before your arrival that particular June. And we decided we would hit Mushroom Studios and make a song sort of like on the spot and made Assimilate as in an all-night session. But what I love about that session is the memory of how you were like, fuck that, give me that tape recorder. You got any opera? And instantly tuned into some beautiful fragmented version of what was on that tape. And then you were insistent that the drums be samples made with the mouth, and it just opened up a giant door for me, anyways. Personally,
really, did it open up a giant door? You'd never thought of that shit before?
No, I didn't really think on that level at that point. It was still a ripe young era, Tom. It's like still. I think it was our, you know, one of our first 10 recordings or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can imagine being on the spot. It was like, I was under pressure. I was like, okay, here we go. And then by the end, I think it was Ogre or Bill, they I don't know if you remember, but they had those exploding cigarette gag things.
Oh, yeah.
And I smoked cigarettes in those days. And at the very end of the night, I lit up a cigarette and they had put 2 of these bombs in the cigarette. And when I lit it, it literally did the folding up of the cigarette paper to my face. I remember I almost had a heart attack.
We could have recorded the heart attack.
Yeah. What's your takeaway from those sessions? Anything? Memory? What you must have thought, oh, who are these odd Canadians? What was your thought about the studio?
No, we'd known each other for a while at that stage. No, it wasn't odd. That was pretty much how we would do things. I mean, we had samplers, and that was new. Having a sampler was like having an atomic reactor. I mean, it was like it was a power that, fuck it, use it, you know. So why would you want to do something like normal when you've got all this stuff that you could work with, and you could put it in the sampler and, you know, cough or yell or hit a bar stool or some shit like that, and make a sound that way? I mean, it's quick. It's very quick. You know, I want that. Okay, fine. Bang, make it. That's it. We've got it now. I can't remember what the sampler was. It
I do.
was,
They were they were rack mount Korg SDD 1000s. They only had
oh,
two
okay.
5 seconds of sampling time.
Mm-hmm,
The
mm-hmm.
microphone, and you basically, whatever your input was, and then you would click the record button, and it would take the amount of time defined on the knob, and then you would send the trigger input from what we're using at the time was a TR-808, or actually it was a
That's right. I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
and so that would trigger it rhythmically. But the better part of the samples, like we didn't have a proper sampler at that moment on that night. Most of the operatic samples and stuff you did by hand. I can't remember how to load it down. I think maybe we put it to 1/4 inch first, and then we played.
Oh, they had a harmonizer.
Yeah, they
We're
did.
running everything through the harmonizer, you know, and of course that comes from the residents. You know, who at that stage, the harmonizer had been one of their major instruments for a long time. They were always playing normal things like guitars and stuff, and then harmonizing the fuck out of them. So they'd have that sort of sound to them. And, you know, I'd never actually got to play with a harmonizer before, because they were like, you know, fuck expensive back then. So they had one of them in the studio. Let's use the harmonizer. Let's see what we can do this thing.
The black Eventide.
Yeah, it was an Eventide. Yeah, you can get a plug-in does that.
Original one.
Well, but in terms of like the recording, you know, it was like no time to waste. Hurry up, let's get this shit happening.
So for us, I mean, our piece of essential, what we called the essential piece of equipment to make our music at the time, it felt like we needed a digital delay. And the weapon of choice was the Lexicon PCM 41. Did Severed Heads have an essential weapon that had to be used? It seemed that you guys, no, I mean, what was created such a, say for instance, you know, some of the heavier drum programming.
MS-20.
Always, right?
Well,
SQ10 sequencer and MS-20.
Okay, so there was a hock shop down the road. Now, hang on, let's get this right. No, let's be careful here. I knew a guy at a music shop. He actually knew the band Hiroshima Chair that I used to help out with, which was Gary's band after he stopped working with me. And he was called Jed, and he normally played piano on cruise ships. That was his main thing. But when he wasn't playing the piano on cruise ships, he would sell music gear. And he would always ring me up when he had something really stupid. Like he had these electro-harmonics drum kit at one point, you know, so the crash pads that, you know, boo, 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 sort of thing. He had a bagpipe synthesizer at one stage.
Nice.
And I fucking wouldn't buy it. He was like, come on, you know, you're the only person I know who's going to buy a bagpipe synthesizer. And I said, no, I'm not getting that shit. But anyway, he rings me up and he says, somebody's just come in with a bunch of old stuff. So come along and have a look at it. And it was an MS-20 and an MS-50 combo. I think I got that for about $300 or something.
What a steal.
And well, not at the time, but it was okay. Yeah. And then I was walking past this hock shop and they had that SQ10 sitting in the window, and I was with my old man. And he says, what is it? I say, it's a sequence. He says, oh, I don't know what that is, but I'll go in. You're too small. You're too young. They'll try and fool you. So my old man goes in there and argues with him and gets it like $50 or something for this thing. So at this stage, I've got two MS-20s and an SQ10 and an MS-50, and you know, along that. And you had to do everything. That's it. That was kind of like that, and the Kauai 100F, which of course was the screechy, horrible bird thing. And an Ibanez delay, which you could trigger. You could trigger this Ibanez delay. That's it. That's the gear. You know.
That's what made that amazing.
Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, didn't have much.
So was it your world of tapes, or Who came up with the whole Brazil and Rome trip?
Me to start off with, and then Gary
Brazil.
massaged it. The way it would work is that I would start doing things, and Gary would tell me how stupid and fucked I was, and then fix it. That was pretty much that was the process at the time, you know. So I'd say, here, let's do all this stuff, and then there's a brilliant bit in the video where a hand kind of reaches into the screen and changes my setting, and then comes out of the picture, which is like Gary Bradbury kind of critiquing whatever I was doing at that moment, you know. Tape and stuff, yeah, that was mostly me and Gary, and a lot of it was recorded in bedrooms and shared houses, and, you know, very cheaply and nastily, really.
Drug free.
Yeah.
Interesting. God,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I should ever ask this question, but if you've ever tripped and listened to Since the Accident, it is an intense experience. I mean, it can almost border on, some people might say, religious experience. And I gotta say, it's pretty monumental.
It's pretty old now.
Yeah,
I've had more fun recently.
And you know what's really interesting is, like, recently you were doing the Living Museum. And I'm just always astounded how you'll take your old classics, but yet you'll redo them, but yet they'll still retain their original wonder, and that's quite an achievement. You know, I gotta give you hands up for this album. This album is an amazing listen.
I do a lot of new things as well. And there's been a lot of shit that's happened since then. The point is that you show respect to the elderly, but I don't have to live with them. All of these old records, I appreciate them very much, and they're always going to be available and stuff, but there's so many new and wonderful things going on now that is like the whole idea of spectral editing and stuff like that at the moment is incredible, but we'll probably get to that later on. These days you can take any sound, pull it apart into sine waves, rearrange the sine waves, and then put it back together again and end up with a completely different sound from where you started. I just want to sometimes say that there's really fucking great things going on right now in music that are far more interesting than what was happening then. But
for sure,
we'll get there.
It's nice. It's nice to have roots when, of course, in that time you had never heard anything like this music. And one thing that was fun as hell was in 1986. I guess you and I embarked on probably what is still the biggest tour of our lives that we ever did. 72 shows back, consecutive going home from
fucking dickheads.
No, unbelievable. So we toured across Canada, we toured all of Europe, and then we toured the full USA.
Yeah. Okay. So, question for you: Did you have any mental illnesses after that?
I think everybody did.
Yeah, I certainly fucking did. But what happened? You don't have to get into details, but what happened at the end of that?
If I was honest, and I could write a book about that whole tour, about what it did to people. I think.
Yeah.
I think that at certain stages we had challenges that we didn't ever think that we would have to face yet.
Yeah. Propane.
Oh my God. So one story that should be told is how we had kind of converted these delivery vans, like just a moving truck that had the little porthole that went from the front seat where the driver is. It would go, you could slide it open and go into the back, but we would build a wall back there and literally put in just a regular house couch. You know, a couch that could slide around, but because we'd build the wall tight against it, it wouldn't slide around. And we had 2 of those that Network had rented or whatever, and we boarded up with these walls. And then without even proper heating or without any really, just the seat of our pants, we just took off, all of us, in that situation. Can you imagine doing that again, Tom?
I didn't know any better.
Yeah, none of us did.
I thought that was how people did shit in North America.
No, I just think back, you know, like we drove the entire first, like across the country of Canada, which is laborious in itself, doing
Hmm.
shows in every obscure Canadian town. But I remember we would come in and it just, the one good thing was is it felt like the show that they were about to see each and every time was something I think that would mark their lives, or,
Yeah.
you know, certainly it would do something for them that they must carry on, hopefully to this day. Even I can't forget some of the things that I saw when Ogre had that big face shield. I actually thought, you know, that maybe we wouldn't even make it into a week into the tour before he would be dead at that first moment.
I there are stories from that tour that I don't tell people until I've known them for a very long time. And I don't know what I can actually say here because I don't know who's listening, and I don't know. So um, the transformation. I think I can go a little bit into depth, but not. I can just skate over the top of it. At the beginning of this in Vancouver, you'll remember the expo was on.
Yes.
And I remember one of the things was that the Ogre was very kind. I had these booklets I was giving out to people, and he used the photocopier at Expo to like make me fuckloads of these booklets and had them all stapled together. You know, so I had this box of booklets that he'd actually gone and built for me and shit like that. And I was thinking, what a nice young man. What a nice young man this person is. Um, and then we get to Toronto, and a lot of things happen in between, like Saskatoon, for example. God bless. And we get to Toronto, and that was at the point where the psychological damage that was going on at that was changing people's personalities to a point that I didn't really recognize them anymore. And it was really a case of people who really needed to have something that they could direct all of their negative energy into. See how I'm skating over the words here because I don't want to say anything in public. But some individuals who were very susceptible to this were being poisoned by what all of these people wanted them to be. I want you to be this. I need you to be this. Anyway, I just hit the mute button. At one point, if I do anything, if one point, basically an envelope came backstage directed at Ogre, and he opened it up and it was full of blood and broken glass. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, yeah.
and I said to him, I said, holy fuck, you know, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about people like doing this shit and sending it to you? And at that stage, he said, I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore because these people were trying so hard to make him into an object that he had started to become an object. And that was like, not even, that was like 3 weeks into this thing. And I have no idea what went on after that. But
And then, so after that, we went to Europe, and then at those days, it was still a communist wall that was up. And then, ironically, both you and Skinny Puppy, we split into different directions, and you guys went to what was then Yugoslavia.
yeah.
And we went to Budapest, Hungary, both of which were communist countries at the time.
Yeah.
Required like a 7-level checkpoint with machine guns and all the rest to get in.
Oh,
And
machine guns. I was marched across Los Angeles airport on a fucking machine gun. Thank you very much.
yeah, we're not
I got to the United States on the way to there and didn't have a fucking visa, did I? And out came the fucking machine guns, you know? I was marched across in and out of America at machine gun point. Hello, welcome to North America. So anyway, keep on, go on.
So I remember you at the time were touring with Pete Rivet Karnak,
Yeah.
Single Gun Theory, and Stephen Jones. Basically we'll get onto that. He's basically one of the creators of video synthesis in some weird manner. I know you say it goes back, but you had an incident where Pete got fed up by that point. I think it was like he dove off the stage and someone was spitting on you like old punk rock days, and he dove off the stage with a wanting to grab someone's neck, and someone ripped his thumb off, and he got a broken finger.
Yeah, the thing with Pete was complex. I have a new rule that if you go on tour with somebody, rule number one is they have to know why they're there. You've got to say to everybody on tour, do you know why you're here? And if they can't say why they're there, don't take them. Don't involve people who don't know why they're there, because when they get halfway through the tour, they start saying things like, I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah,
they start doing crazy shit.
He seemed like a very innocent guy, and then by the end, maybe that happened to him. He had been tarnished in some manner.
Everybody has.
He didn't make it.
Everybody has cracks in them.
Yeah.
And then you put them in the oven, and then the cracks show up, even if they weren't visible before. I don't know what your cracks are. My cracks are, I can explain them if wanted, but I'm talking about somebody that I'm not in contact with anymore in any shape or form. All I can say is that the cracks opened up quite early on, and there were things that happened. Well, how do you talk about this shit in public?
Well, no, it's really more about your experience of going and playing a communist country and having trouble with the audience.
All right.
I mean,
all right, okay, I'll tell the story.
That was a totally different world back then.
I'll tell the story. I'll tell the story was that when we went on tour in Europe, we got to Germany. Now, we start off in Europe. We have a truck and everything. We get to Spain, and we get robbed.
Right.
All my clothing, all my equipment, everything gone. So we have to go back to England in this truck with a window missing out of it and the wind sort of blowing in through. We have to go drive back to England to try and start again. Okay, at which point we picked up a female hitchhiker at a truck stop and saved her from being raped and took her to, it's just one of those stories that just goes on and on and on and on and on. Like we got stopped at the French border, and then there was like the most colossal rainstorms they'd had in like 100 years. And we actually floated into France in this floodwaters. I'm not making this shit up. Our van got caught in a flood and got washed into France. That's how we managed to get in, even though we weren't allowed in. Anyway, we got back to England, and we got into a car that belonged to the tour manager. We drove back in his car. We get back to Germany. We start doing Germany. We end up in a town called Prum, and his car breaks down. It's a fucking English car. The parts are made in England. He's going to get the parts flown from England so he can fix his fucking car in this backwater called Prum. So how are we going to get to Yugoslavia? Well, we catch a lift with a band called Wire, who we were playing with, and they took us around the place. And so we got taken around. We got to Munich when we played with Wire.
Classic, though. And
then they dropped us off at the train station. And we got some tickets from Munich to Ljubljana, to Laibach. And of course, the train pulls into Yugoslavia, and they wanted our passports. Now, I don't know why I was the only person who got arrested and thrown in jail at that point, but I was the only person who got arrested and thrown in jail for not having a fucking visa to be in Yugoslavia.
Oh, wow.
I was held for about 2 hours at machine gun point. There's a theme that keeps on going on about fucking machine guns. Anyway, yeah. And then I'm taken down to cells, locked up for a couple of hours, and eventually I finally got a visa stamped and got let go and stuff. We get the train all the way to Laibach. And then it's like, okay, we're out of the train. So where's the gig? I don't know. Well, where did you think it was? I don't know. I don't know where the gig was. So we're looking around for posters. And we're walking around the city looking for posters. And we finally find a poster with Severed Heads written on it. Right. So we rip it off the wall, get a taxi, and show the posters of the taxi driver. He drives us to the venue. And then the whole thing, you know, like punk lives. They're spitting on us on stage. You know, that was the main feature of the night. Pete jumps off stage, strangles somebody, gets his arm broken, his wrist broken. And then, like, where is he? I don't know where he is. What's going on? I asked the guy. He says it's okay. I said, what's okay? It's fine. What's fine? In hospital. He's fine. He's fine in hospital. It's okay. I'm thinking, oh, great. He's in fucking hospital. That's fine. That's fucking brilliant, isn't it? So come on, we'll go and have dinner. So I go for dinner. We get taken to what's obviously a mixture of government and criminal underground. It's like the most amazing restaurant that you've ever been in. Like, it didn't have gold leaf on the fucking beef, but it may as well have. It was that kind of like stupidly opulent meal with all these liggers there, all these people are eating, and, you know, people outside the restaurant were fucking starving, and we were all inside having this sort of wonderful meal. And they even had the whores, you know, set out for us. And then Pete comes in, he's got his, you know, arm in a sling. Oh, yeah. Guess what? My, you know, I can't perform anymore.
Yeah, he's not playing with that.
You're not playing with that. Yeah. And then this guy who's the promoter says, okay, here you go. Here's your fee. Hands us a 1,000 Deutschmark note, right? 1,000 fucking Deutschmarks in one note. How do you think everyone else at the table was fine, except I think a few people were thinking, you know, like, we'll get this guy on the way out.
Yeah.
Got a lift to the train station. And I'm sad to say that the female company that had been ordered for us were like chasing after the car, you know, like, well, take us with you. Fucked. You know.
So you continued on with Stephen Jones.
Yeah, I know he'd gone back to Australia at that point.
Stephen? No, he was still there for America after that.
Yeah, he flew back.
Oh, he went home and came back? He had to have
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he had to go. He flew home. He didn't bother going. And then when Pete disappeared, it was me and the road manager pretending to be Pete. Right? And so he was like going on a keyboard with, you know, the sound turned down, and there's me, and that's it. And this is the clincher. This is the clincher. Like, we did the show in Zurich, which is just like me, a 26-inch television for the video, and the tour manager going like that. And some fucker recorded the whole thing and stuck it up on fucking YouTube.
So do you remember when we hit Munich, Germany, and we went down to the club, and the stage was just impossibly small?
Yeah.
We thought, like, oh my God, you know, we got all this equipment in the truck. What are we going to do? Well, I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe we should just improvise.
Yeah.
And so we all set up in some seating area, kind of behind the stage, and we did an improvised set. It's like 36-minute long, with me, you, Dwayne, Ogre. I think Ogre was on guitar, which was really odd.
Yeah.
We had Snowy Red, Mickey, and we had the Egg Room members. Remember Egg Room? The Egg Room members.
Oh, I fucking remember them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had Al Nelson. He was like lying on what was the stage. It was like a stripper stage. And he had film projectors that he was pointing at us for the lights. I remember we played, and then as the curtain was coming down, we had a curtain that could come down in front of us. It was getting down almost to the bottom. It was like, "Show's up!" You remember that?
And and tell me that you didn't really. Tell me honestly, wouldn't you like to be doing that all the time?
Yeah, that was hella fun. That was definitely, I remember it well.
Yeah.
And remember having a really good time. And then so we actually recorded it. And then when we got to New York, our truck got broken into, and all our personal shit got stolen, including the master tape that we had made at that recording, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were the days. I remember New York was a rough place in '86.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, it was like way, way, way more hardcore than now. And you know, if you went to New Jersey and New York and those places, it was like the real deal. But then when we played, you know, in that time, like I'll never forget so many of the experiences. I think one experience I can tell without getting too weird, but we were staying at this hotel right next to the White House, and there was this literally like 2 blocks away from the White House, and it was quite a nice hotel. We were like, oh, we got to get a nice hotel, and there was this guy that rolled in, and he was like had this really long stretch limousine, and he was dressed to the nines, and he just seemed like highly unusual. He said to someone, hey, you want to get high? And then he came to the room, and he dropped down on the table the biggest pile of a baseball-sized rock of crack cocaine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we thought, oh, he wanted to smoke a joint or something like that. And he's like,
yeah,
he put down, like I'd never even seen or heard of crack at that point.
Yeah.
So we were all looking at it like, well, that's not my deal, you know. I mean, I think like we left there, we went and did sound check, and he sat in the backstage, and he was smoking it the whole time. He was like rolling like he would unroll a cigarette, and he would put cocaine, and he would fill up the cigarette all the way up to the top, and then he'd twist it up, he'd put it in his mouth, and then he'd light it, and there would be like this. I could see this like powder like spilling out at the same time, and I'll never forget that he said, you know, Kevin, I really love to smoke cocaine. And I was like, man, this guy is trouble.
Yeah.
And so we had a tour manager at that time. Do you remember? It was him, Steve Montgomery.
Oh, yeah. English, British.
Yeah, a British guy. So he was like a storybook in itself. Like he was the wrong type of tour manager for us to have.
Yeah.
Because he accepted a present from that guy that was like, I don't know, a suitcase full of crack cocaine or something like that. And he carried it with him for the rest of the time. And I never saw him normal again. So as you said, people entered that tour and then left the tour just something completely different. And then so when I put 2 and 2 together, you know, there was a big story about the mayor of Washington D.C., Marion Barry, being a crackhead, and him being heavily covered by the whole sort of like mafia sort of situation. But the thing is that guy was like straight up like driver, limo, the whole bit, left the car running. His stories were just too good to be true. He was like, can I offer you guys some cash before you leave? You know, you guys need some extra cash. And we're like, we didn't want anything from him except our tour manager wanted whatever he got. But man, that was a crazy story. I remember that like, because it was like in the height of the 80s, you know, the 80s period where the 80s was the 80s still. So you'd enter into Florida, and it was like, it was exactly like what you heard about. It was like, you know, everybody was offering you cocaine everywhere you went. It was like, you know, like, you know, it was a miracle to survive, actually.
You would have survived, but there was a lot of shit where, you know, you could have had your insides not survive. I think that's the way of putting it. There'd still be the person, but the person wouldn't have the person inside them. You know what I mean? And I think that's why it's really important to see absurdity in everything. Not be taken in by it. Not be sort of like, oh yeah, I have to be this now. I have to be a kind of like, I'm in the rock and roll business, so I've got to be a kind of rock and roll kind of guy. No, you're still the same sort of like nitwit that you were when you started. You've got to keep the base, you know? I mean, the moment you start believing too much, then
yeah, for sure.
You know.
But you know what was nice is that, you know, I was with you, and you and I made it through safely, and we made it through unscarred. But the things that we witnessed, you know, like yeah, they're like the Quentin Tarantino films.
Not quite. They were kind of like outtakes from a Tarantino film, you know, all the bit that ended up on the cutting room floor. They weren't kind of like, I don't know. I've got like, we came back and we went with 900-foot Jesus around the place. It was like, it was just as silly again.
Did you do it in the trucks again?
Did it in Winnebago.
A little better.
A little better. Both bands in the Winnebago. But I've got, a lot of memories from that as well. And it hadn't really, I mean, it kind of improved, but it kind of didn't improve at the same time. The one thing that I'm reminded of is we're driving to New York, and like the driver, Shelony, she was driving and I was next to her being the driver buddy, keeping her awake and stuff. And we're driving to New York and we're city and we'd been awake for way too long. This sign comes up and it goes, maximum height is like whatever, 12 feet or something. And he goes past and we're sort of like, turn off to Brooklyn if you're not this. And I said to her, how tall are we? And she goes, I think we're taller than that. Oh.
Boom.
What might happen? Oh, I've got this air conditioner thing on the, it's driving along. And the sign says, and then next thing I know, we're in New York. And it's kind of like we were just, it's like God picked us up in the truck and put it in New York. We were both just kind of like, here we are. And it really, that's one of those moments where you feel like a bit of your life, you got to like edit was done and they sticky tape the film back together again. The bit where the Winnebago went into like bits, people died and lots of shit. It's just makes no sense, but it just comes part of the history. 86 had a lot of weird edits in it, and 1990 had a lot of weird edits in it. And sort of like going back or out and about on the shows recently, I've been kind of amazed how calm they are, how everything's so fucking normal. You go to Brooklyn, and it's all just basically, meatball shops. Everyone's so nice.
Does it feel safer to you now, or more?
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot safer.
Los Angeles seems a lot fucking safer as well. Thank you very much.
It definitely is.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
1993, driving around LA.
Totally
ending
different.
up in the wrong part of town.
No.
Yeah, I was like, I learned a lot that day. Yeah, shit.
You spent some time living in California, didn't you?
If you call that living.
But you have some very vibrant stories because you happen to live in the hometown of my wife, Brianna, the lovely California, which is kind of like what you might want to call, has a notorious reputation a bit in itself.
Yeah, but back a long time ago, there was an orange grove next to where I was staying.
Beautiful.
And when we're talking a long time ago.
Yeah.
I learned to drive in Hemet. I learned to drive on the wrong side of the road in Hemet. I'm driving around on the right-hand side of the road, and then I was driving for a while, and the person I was with said, "You're on the wrong side. You're on the left." And I'm going, "Oh, okay," because there was no other cars anyway, so you couldn't tell. That is, here we go. I mean, it was pretty small town back then. It was teeny town back when I was first there, and I guess it's changed a lot since. Like LA's got better, and Hemet's got worse, I guess.
Yeah. Did you compose any songs while living in Hemet?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to know which particular one, if you remember.
Well, there's one called Hemet.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Brianna, did you know that?
Yeah. Well, Paul was asking about it.
Paul, you know about that one? I see he's commenting here on the side.
Mm.
Paul and Dre, we've got there. We've got OCD, Charlie Smith, JS from New Zealand. Someone checking in from New Zealand.
They're allowed.
If you guys have some questions, pose them on the side there, and I'll pose them to Tom for you.
Meanwhile.
Oh, nice.
I love this thing.
I had something too. I can't find it now.
I got this for Christmas.
I was lucky enough to get this beautiful box set recently. This thing is phenomenal.
Yeah.
You don't like it? Meh?
Look. We're going to talk about this shit. We're going to talk about this shit. You know, sharks have to keep swimming, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise they drown. Right? Yeah. I remember that. I'll explain that if you want. But
Yeah,
sharks have to keep swimming. Otherwise they drown, right? If they're not in constant motion, they'll die. And I think that's what music's like. I don't think music can live back in the past if it doesn't keep moving. If you don't keep moving, you can drown. And I don't want to drown. That's what I'm saying here, you know.
What an amazing package, though. This is.
Yeah. Hi there, 1970s person.
Mr. and Mrs. No Smoking sign go cruising for burgers.
Correct.
Headless corpses.
Yep.
It has it all. I highly recommend this box set to people that
you can't get it.
Can't get it anymore?
No, not for years.
Really?
Yeah. I've got about 4 of them. Came with the thing I like about it is that the guy who did it, we were talking about how we could make it funnier, and he got some pillowcases printed. Yeah.
That's a t-shirt though.
Yeah, you get a t-shirt, but you also get a pillowcase. Did you get the pillowcase with your one?
I don't think I did.
Ah, you ripped off then.
I got ripped off.
My one's red.
Red pillowcase.
No, the whole thing, the whole box is red.
And then I also really enjoyed this record that somebody sent me. And you said,
oh yeah,
you must be part of several names in here that maybe I don't even know of that you're involved with. I noticed the Kane album is in here, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah. But let me explain. It was supposed to be a survey of Australian underground music, right?
And it's amazing.
And it is to a certain extent, but because Vinyl on Demand already had a bunch of matrices of my shit, they put them in that box as well. So the box actually has some extra padding in it. Gary Bradbury was one of the people who compiled that. And so it's his selection. I had nothing to do with it. And it's got a booklet inside.
Yes.
And it's really funny because, and I think this is really interesting, that because I refused to have anything to do with it,
nice booklet.
There's this hole where I would normally be, and people are saying this happened and that happened, and they're talking about what I was doing, but I don't say anything at all. And I actually found that much more interesting than actually saying anything, to have all these other people describe from a distance what I was doing or not doing, because I don't want anything to do with this thing, and yet I still end up in the middle of this shit. So, you know.
So from then until now, I mean,
yeah,
obviously you guys were inspired to what you're probably making, like several songs a week, like, you know, as we were back then. What keeps you inspired now, and how do you like find? I always find with new equipment that there's a little bit of like, it's a little harder to make it sound, I don't want to say sound old, but I mean, it's a little, it's just harder to make it sound different, if you know what I mean. Like, yeah, it's just, too many gadgets, too many things. You can stand up with like too much stuff.
But it's about thinking. It's not old equipment or new equipment. It's old thinking or new thinking. If you think in an old way with new equipment, it's not going to change. It's going to be boring. And so one of the things you've got to do, I think, is say, okay, let's talk about albums for a moment here. Okay, if you say, I'm going to make an album, you're already fucked. Because you're thinking about an old format. You're thinking about an old thing and trying to make it new, and it won't work, because you are saying, I'm going to make a horse and buggy, and this horse and buggy, I'm going to put it in the car yard, and it's not fucking going to work. So one of the things
Love it.
one of the things that you have to do as a musician is to say, what would I normally do? What is it that I would expect I would be doing? And refuse permission for you to do that. You've got to stop thinking in an old way. Otherwise, you will produce old things. Now, if you want to produce old things, like most people at the moment just want to do the 1970s and 80s forever and ever and ever and ever, fine, that's your problem, not mine. But like, that's why I'm getting more involved in computer game design and, you know, installations and objects and stuff, because if you don't, then you're just going to recapitulate your older thinking. So buy a new piece of equipment, sure, but you're still going to go, well, normally I would blah, 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 blah. Now, if you do that, you're instantly fucked, instantly fucked. And so what I'm doing now is I'm saying, you know, I've got a lot of hardware. I mean, hello, hardware and lots of stuff. It's room of hardware. That's fine. But there's all sorts of interesting things that you can do in software at the moment. Like, let's talk about a thing I've seen recently that you can put in a piece of music and it strips it apart into the vocals and the bass and the drums and the guitar. And basically you can strip all this shit out. It's absolutely amazing. So you got a Rolling Stones track and you remove everything except Mick Jagger's voice. Right?
Yep.
So you got Mick Jagger in a room singing Paint It Black by himself. Immediately, why not get some other track and then keep everything except the voice and put those things together and see what happens? Or maybe do it with the voice and the drums and then put some other thing, or just get the voice and the drums and put your own shit in there.
What
there are
are you talking about?
Oh, I'd have to look it up again. I don't remember. I could probably find it, but point being, it's public domain. It's like free. It's you know, a bit of coding involved, but it works.
Is it designed for people to sing on songs so they can strip the vocal off and so on like that?
Well, it's actually it's a demonstration of artificial intelligence, of machine learning, that these guys fed it. Like every rock song. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to you at the same time as I'm gonna look this shit up. They fed it all the music that they had rights to, and they asked it to work out what the vocals were and what the drums were and what the guitar were. And the machine goes, and it goes, I've heard 10,000 different things. I know how to pull these things apart now. And, you know, the point is, it's a demonstration of artificial intelligence. Yeah, here we go. I'm still Deezer, was it called Deezer? Deezer, artificial AI. Let's see if I can find something. And, you know, it's up to the musician to, Megan.
Like the Pet Cemetery shirt.
Yeah, yeah. It's called Deezer.
What's that? Deezer?
Yeah, Deezer. And it's called Spleeter. Spleeter.
Spleeter.
Spleeter.
And what platform is that for?
Oh, you have to compile it yourself, man.
What I mean, is it a standalone app, or what is it?
It's a piece of code that you have to insert into it. You actually have to run the code to do it. There's probably lots of different things. Deezer.io is the Spleeter is on that thing. But point is that don't let the tech heads figure that shit out.
Right.
Why would you want to buy another analog synthesizer when you've got some shit that can pull music apart? Fuck with it and put it back together. That's what synthesis is now. That's what synthesis is, not fucking, oh, I'm going to lift the fucking filter up and down like it's 30 fucking years ago. We're supposed to be leading the conversation, not listening to what the tech heads are saying. You went out and you bought a synthesizer at the time when no one else was like really doing any shit with it, right? Okay. It was a political act. Now, political act at the moment means that you find stuff and you rip shit apart and you put it back together. And if you're doing that, then you're actually in the year 2020, not in the year 1980. And this is my speech. Thank you very much. You know,
I liked how, you know, if anything was used back in the day, whatever synthesizer it was, it definitely was not alone. It was always with a combination of pedals or a combination of some sort of external effects which created
yeah,
that world. So in a
yeah.
sense, we're ripping apart things. And I just find it a little bit less fun to rip apart the new stuff. I haven't bought a new synth and I can't even remember the last time.
You've got too many.
Yeah, no, but actually I don't have so many.
Yes, you do. Yes, you
Okay,
do.
maybe I see back there.
I sold half of mine recently. I've just kept the ones. I've just kept what it is I know is musical. I'm not. It's not a fucking toy shop. Well, it looks like one because I've got, you know, toys, but it's the synthesizers are your minions. You don't need all these useless people around the place. You need people who are going to work for you. You know.
But you must have one synth that you can't live without.
Mm, I don't know. Maybe the base station at the moment.
Yeah, okay, great. That's
Yeah, like,
what
hang on. I'll show you something. Hang on. You just hang there.
okay. Question from Charlie Smith. Tom, you still a firm believer in the SY77? Maybe he's got his headphones off.
Hello.
Tom, Charlie Smith asks, are you still a firm believer in the Yamaha SY77?
Look at this shit.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, it's a guitar pedal, but it's got like a got Bluetooth on it, right? And you can upload algorithms into it, and then it's actually a little computer that you can get stuff off the iTunes shop, and you can program it and do all kinds of like fucked up things with it. But it's still just a guitar pedal, you know. So you run your mono thing through that, and like you fuck it up in all kinds of interesting ways. You know, there's lots of really interesting things going on at the moment. There really are. The SY77. It's when I first had one, I was really shit at it, and most of the noise I made were that usual kind of like DX7 sizzle kind of thing, you know, sausage sizzle. But I got one again recently, and there's a programmer. I've got like a you know, thing where you can turn the knobs and stuff like that. And it's a beautiful thing. The FM synthesizers always thought as being cold and being kind of like not analog sounding. But the thing is, you've just got to learn how to use it. You've actually got to really, really, really spend a long time learning how to use it. And then you will get very, very beautiful things out of it. I did have the FS1R, which is like the sort of super one with 8 operators, and sounded shit. It was fancy, but it sounded shit. So, you know, fuck it off. Somebody paid a stupid amount of money for it. So, you know, goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dwayne was a big fan of the SY77 too, and man, some of the sounds he used to get out of that thing.
Yeah.
Just, I think a lot of the more Stranger Things on Last Rites, he was using that for.
Yeah, but you can get. I mean, FM is basically software. You know, a DX7 is software. It's like there's no point. You know, if you want it in a box, fine, have it in a box. But there's some really beautiful software that sounds exactly the same. You know, I just don't believe in this hardware uber alles kind of thing. You know, to use what does the job.
And what DAW do you like to use when it comes to putting it all together?
Cubase.
Wow. So are you not a Mac man then?
No.
Wow.
I hate Mac.
Yeah.
Mac is work. No. If you work at a university, everything's Mac. I come home and I've been working with Mac all fucking day. I'm on a Mac now. This is my work computer.
Right.
It's like whatever you work with at work, you don't want that shit at home, right?
Right.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Easy.
Good analogy there. So where can, like, as someone was saying here earlier, how lucky to have Tom Ellard as a teacher. So where can people go to find you as a professor right now? Where did you go? Where do you keep going to do this?
Okay.
How do we
Okay.
find
So the university I work at is called the University of New South Wales. It's probably the second largest university here. But they have the fine arts campus is like 10 minutes away from where I live. So back in the day, I would get up, walk 10 minutes, go into the lecture hall, talk shit, you know, go to my office, come back again. It was very convenient. I was very lucky. And I was actually the film professor in America. It's called the film professor for 8 years. Before that, I taught music at Wollongong University and Western Sydney University. At the moment, I'm actually the sound teacher. We're not allowed to say music. I don't teach music. I teach sound because music is a different department. You want music, you go over that department. If you want sound, you come to this department. Fucked if I know. Anyway, am I lucky? No, because to be quite honest, I think everybody who might be listening to this or watching this is already a musician, is already inspired to be making music, and you don't need me to like rah you up. Whereas when you're dealing with students who are like, you know, maybe 17, 18 years old and they have no idea what I've done or what the fuck I am or anything like that, I'm just the guy, the teacher, you know. I'm just like, and most of them are really.
Do you feel that when you go in that there's absolutely no recognition that this is
I know that.
severed heads, and so it's just like it's literally, oh, I've got to go to music sound classroom A, and then you're good evening class.
Yeah, and
defiance.
They're not well. I mean, the poor bastards are suffering at the moment because they're in lockdown. I'm really happy that we found them Pro Tools, copies of Pro Tools to take home and work with at home. Although, of course, Pro Tools is a fucking difficult thing to learn, particularly when you're at home and that we can't have classes. Here's a copy of Pro Tools. Here's the manual. Learn it. Bye.
Yeah, no,
not good. And I'm like making them do soundtrack design for film, which is, you know, okay. It's kind of interesting. It's not very interesting for them at the moment. And I've got another session coming up in the month's time. It'll be a lot better. I'll be taking them through late 19th century, early 20th century avant-garde, and you know, the whole kind of like musique concrète and glitch. Glitch is going to be a really interesting thing for these guys, because glitch is the world that they've grown up in. Imagine you were born sometime after the year 2000. You know, what's 1980s, 1990s shit got to do for you? Nothing.
Yeah, I know.
But the Glitch Manifesto was put out in 2001, and that's where we can start. We can start talking about the breakdown of digital media and go from there.
Is there a program for video glitch making or anything like that would be something to discuss?
Oh, well, there's video. You can get video synthesizers now that run on Mac. Runs exactly the same as the old one did. You know, it's basically got knobs on it and makes all the blah, 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 sort of stuff that, you know. In terms of like glitching stuff up, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos I've been working on.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
How
are you obtaining such high resolution and such results? Like what can I ask what program you're working in to do that?
Yeah, well, recently I'm working in Premiere because I've got the Adobe suite. I used to work in a thing called Sony Vegas, which was a kind of multi-track tape recorder. It also had video. I did a lot of the old stuff in that. But there's a lot of stuff you can do, like video feedback and glitching and tearing. And one of the lovely tools, for example, is a plugin that does time sampling. It'll sample a bunch of frames and then it'll chop them up. And then, so thinking about the latest Dead Eyes Opened version that we did for the live shows, a couple of notable things in that. First of all, you know, Tara's dancing in this video, but it's grabbing her motion and it's like time. It's you
Yeah,
know,
it's
editing the
wonderful.
time and times, and then the whole thing with the fire effect is done with video feedback, which is all being done in the mind of the computer. You know, the whole kind of feedback thing that's going on there.
They all look next level, like definitely not what your eyes have typically seen before, but you're always finding a new way to do something, which is like it's
Do you
new
go to the
level.
pictures? You go to the pictures much?
No,
You don't go see movies much. Do you watch movies though?
not as much as I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have
Rihanna
you?
does.
Yeah. There's things happening in film at the moment, which is all about, you know, things looking real. I mean, everyone wants everything to look kind of real these days. But you know, some of the most recent films, like even those superhero films, you know, the water they've got. Okay, I'll give you one remake of The Lion King. If you've seen that, there's a bit where there's like a lion. That's not a lion. That's my wife. There's a lion,
Hi, Tara.
a 3D animated lion, and it's walking on sand, and the sand is crumbling underneath its feet, and the hair is completely, you know, the hair and the sand are interacting, and the whole fucking thing is 3D animated.
It's incredible.
And it's just like, it's not about how we're no longer trying to impress people by, oh, you can do the special effect. It's now reality. Reality is like what we're doing now. And this whole face swapping thing, you know, that you can just sort of take somebody else's face and put another person's face on, um, take one photograph, turn it into a 3D object. There's shit going on at the moment, which is like absolutely of the level where we're stepping way beyond special effects now.
Do you get into things like ZBrush or you know things like designing frameworks and getting into the next level video composition?
I
Or
don't
you mostly
know
just like to do
what's next level. I mean, I do a lot of computer game design at the moment. That's really hard. The thing I'm learning at the moment is crowds. You get a whole bunch of these model people, and you say, now crowd, and they go, go over there, come back over here, blah blah blah. Because the thing I'm building an amusement park of all things. I'm building this amusement park, and I need people walking up and down the midway. You know, I need hundreds of people sort of going, and I can't animate every one of them. So I just say, start there, go there, and make your way over there. And that's what the computer is like, making all little legs all sort of going like that. And I don't know, that's kind of commercial now. It used to be you had to be some sort of super math genius to do that shit, but you can get stuff off the shelf, and like, you know, the way you can buy a synthesizer, you don't have to build your own one
right.
like you had to in the day.
But what program are you using to make the crowds?
Well, the game design software is called Unity. Unity is it's free to start with. Obviously, the shit piles up after a while, but yeah, it's free. But you have to learn to code, and you have to learn to do 3D modeling, and you have to learn to do music, and you have to learn to do sound. And the thing
Right.
about sound is that you can position a sound over here, and you can put your microphone over there, and you can hear the sound in 3D, and then you can move the camera around, and the sound is like moving around. And there's all sorts of beautiful things you can do just for music in terms of like game design. There's a tool called Fmod. That's FMOD. Fmod. It's Australian software, and it's like a DAW. It's like a you know, music multi-track. But you know, on a multi-track, you start, it's about sound, you know, so you've got like, pardon me, time. So here's the time, and then you go through time, you get to the other end of the track, right? From 0 to 1 minute. In Fmod, each track is based upon some other factor. So let's say the music, it's about how angry you are, or how angry the music is. So the music at this end could be not very angry, and the music at this end could be very angry. And you can move the slider backwards and forwards, and the music becomes more or less angry as you move the slider backwards and forwards. Because it's all about whatever it is that you want. It doesn't have to be time-based. It's about, you know, what do I want it angry? Do I want it closer, further away? What's going on in the game at the moment that I need to describe musically? But of course, you don't have to use it in the game. You can actually go on stage, sit down in a chair, and design something which gets more or less angry over the whole thing. You know, so it's a beautiful instrument, and again, it's a free thing.
That's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
Rihanna's son is 14, and the way he speaks, it sounds like 15 now, yeah. And sorry, they grow so quickly. Um, and it's kind of interesting to, I want to steer him that way. To he seems like the type to become a video game designer. But where would they start? I mean, you being a teacher, you must.
Yeah, I used to have an intro. I used to have an intro to game design course I ran, but that's naughty. We don't talk about games. Talk about interaction design. Interaction design, that's fine. But if you moment use the word game, it's very naughty. Don't talk about that. So you should be looking at interaction design.
That's how you can inspire a 14, 15-year-old right now, is to say.
Well, there's plenty of shit online where you can start building games straight away. You know, there's lots of tools out there. Oh yeah, shit, yeah, endless supply.
They know everything about video games and stuff as far as the playing side and all the hidden the elements within it. But I want to see them transition into the other side.
Yeah. Well, very first thing is document the game. Like a character walks into a room holding this thing, and there's this other person here. What happens? What doesn't happen? What do they say? What don't they say? You've got to write the script before you can shoot the film. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't need software to do that. So you've got to write a game design or document first, which says exactly what happens, because then the programmers can make that happen. So a great game designer is somebody who can actually define exactly what happens no matter what's going on. And why do you win? And why do you lose? And how do you lose points? And what the point of everything is. If you can hold that in your head, then you can be a very significant designer. It's like any other, it's like being a musician. Any idiot can like make farty noises, but what makes people cry? Or well, that might, but what makes happy music, sad music? What makes people feel better after hearing it? How do you do that?
Spencer asks, I can't find any information about the game you developed, Hauntology House. Can you talk about it? How can I see the game?
Well, HH, it was actually called HH, and they needed a name to put in the brochures and shit. So I said, I will call it Hauntology House. There you go. You've got some shit like that. That came out in 2013, I think. Or was it earlier than that? Maybe. And then I did another one after that called Snow Globe. That was 2015. And now I'm working on another thing. But at the same time, I'm getting HH and Snow Globe, and they're actually designed to snap together. That HH happens underground and Snow Globe happens above ground, and they were always supposed to snap together to make a bigger game, which is called Super Snow Globe. Now, Super Snow Globe actually exists, but it has a few bugs. So at the moment, give me a little time. It's not quite working yet. The thing I'm working on at the moment is hasn't got a title, but it's basically a World's Fair, as if Salvador Dali put the whole thing together, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I want to kind of get that one happening before I get Super Snow Globe fixed up and happening. It does run, but you can fall down holes and never be found again at the moment.
Paul says, mods, hentai games, Chara Studios. Mean anything?
Yes.
Yes.
Hentai. That's Paul's business, not mine. No good at that shit. He's the one. He knows how to do that shit, not me.
By the way, the Paul we're speaking about is Paul Kaiju, aka Paul Copeland, good friend of mine and good friend now Tom's.
Yeah.
He's chatting on the side here, and he's probably, other than, I don't know, I don't think I've met a bigger Tom Severed Heads fan. You already know that. I was trying to invite him into the conversation, but he's being shy.
Yeah, well, I would normally.
Yeah.
Good to be shy. I mean, Kevin, where do you need to go? What's, like, it's not all just about my shit. Where are you pushing at? What are you looking for? What's
Me?
next? Yeah, yeah.
Me? I just live day by day right now with this thing.
Yeah.
Been working on, of course, when you have a studio, you work on music, and then after a while, then that's what I think about how an album comes together, is that
Mm.
the music comes as a result of time. Sometimes you'll feel like, you know, one song might be from 5 years ago, one song might be this year, and so on like that. So it's more like a time machine stamp.
So you're not setting yourself a kind of goal. It's not like I'm going to do this kind of thing.
Well, I can only in the end, if I say I write like 70 or 140 ideas over the course of 3 years or whatever, and then in the end only like 20 really speak to me, then that's the ones that I like kind of gravitate to see what the energy is and why I would be interested in music anyways now. And that's getting a little bit, I'll say, boring to not always know what you want to do. So you'll enter a studio and you'll, kind of, I was going to ask you what your thoughts on modular synthesis were. I think like, yeah. See, so I mean, I want to talk about that for a second because, things become ultra trendy and ultra cool, and there are many cool new inventions and stuff, but does it make better music? I think that, for the long run, if anybody talks to me about modular, I say, be prepared for a year without making good music. Well, unless you're, absolutely on top of everything. I just don't think it's ever produced better music. And I think that it's pushed a lot of people sideways. But, the whole incorporation of modular synthesis back into the world, the way that we're doing it, has made it, I don't know, a little bbit more backwards thinking again and not really progressive. Ah, Paul wants to join. There's a nice question. Are there any big subcon projects or modules in the pipeline? Yes, I am working. I wanted to bring up before we leave the subject of modular. Have been working on a module for the last 2 years called BRAP, which is like a kind of a remake of an old Pearl Syncussion. Did you guys ever use that thing?
Yeah.
Syndrome.
Yeah.
So it's like a hyped out version of that with DCOs, dual DCOs instead of VCOs per channel, and it goes way past what the anything you've heard in that realm, basically. So that was kind of fun to do. So that has been more interesting for me to be involved in, with like seeing an actual physical product come together over time.
So here's the challenge. The thing that I like in a synthesizer is not the bits, the VCO or the whatever it is. I like how they put it together, right?
Yeah.
So the thing I've always been interested in the whole thing is, like, think of it like a city. It's got bank and a hotel and a pub and all of these things. All of these different buildings are joined together in a kind of plan. And when you visit a city, that's kind of what's really interesting about it, is like, how do all these things connect up and flow and cooperate with each other? So when I've got a new keyboard, I think of it like visiting a city, and you learn it, and you learn the streets and the pathways between it. And the problem I have with modular is it's like building your own city. And I'd rather visit something that somebody else built. I'd rather see the limitations and like having all that choice is not what I really want. I want to collaborate with somebody else in however they've gone about it. And sometimes people do really weird things, and I would never have thought that. And if I had my own modular thing, I'd probably just, plunk an oscillator and a filter and shit like that. So that's my problem with it.
Yeah, one of my friends said before I was going away to Japan one time, hey, before you go away, could you just quickly build me a little modular that I could just try at home? And I thought, like, wow, that's not the easiest thing, considering it depends on what you would want to use it for and how you'd approach it.
Yeah.
I said maybe you should investigate, modules and how you want to approach it, what sound you even wanted to come out, like, what was your end what is your end result? What is your desire? And they said, oh, I don't have time to do that. And said, just put together something. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I can do that. And so, yeah, it just made me realize, yeah, that's probably this. I have a common answer that I like to explore a world that you can explore the limitations by finding them and reaching the wall. Mm. And so that's an interesting thing that we have a similar concept on modular synthesis. Paul asks, Hall Ass is still one of my favorite songs. Dream Song versus Cocklacoma. Is that sample dialogue Sonny Bono?
Okay. Dream Song. No.
It's not Sonny
Bono. No. If you see the video, you'll know.
You know what I think we need to do is we need to bring in the resident expert. Here he is. Let's bring him in. He's connecting to audio.
So you mean the guy who's going, people get hot, they get excited, and they take it out on you?
Paul is connecting to audio.
Okay.
It'll take you a second. Uh-oh. No, it won't go. We couldn't go. So Paul was telling me earlier that he's had some problems with his Zoom setup. And it probably has to do with the settings on the audio world. Tech problems.
So if he types it, is it the guy talking about people getting hot and angry and taking it out on you?
Say that again.
Me?
Yeah. Yeah,
it's a song. Well, it's not a song. It's like, I think if it's the right track, it's got somebody singing, I wrote the dream song for you, da 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 da. And some of these other guys going, people get hot, they get angry, they get excited, and they take it out on you. And it's not your fault.
So who is it?
Is that what he mean? Is that who he wants? Is that what he wants to know?
Yes.
Okay, hang on.
It's been riddling.
All right, hang on a second. I'm just going to see if the video is. Okay, no, it's a training instructor at Walt Disneyland. It's a guy training people to be cast members at Disneyland.
Wow, Paul, that's the inside scoop right there.
And I'm just seeing if they've got the video up anywhere. If not, I'll stick it up. But yeah, it's off an old Disney training tape. And he's got all these people in an auditorium and he's teaching them how to like be good cast members. And he's basically saying, everyone's going to treat you like shit, but you're going to have to smile and just remember Walt, you know?
He also asked, what is the dialogue sample used in A Head is Born? And what was the thought behind that song?
Thought. Okay, I have a record, a 10-inch record, which is called The Birth of a Baby. And it is a sound recording of doctors delivering a baby. And the doctors are talking as things are happening. And it's the doctor who's delivering the baby, you know, the legs are coming out, and now the hips are coming out. And the head is born. And it's a boy.
Right.
I just see if I've got that. No, I don't think I've got that video up from the Disney stuff, but if I do find it, it's very easy once you've seen it. I've actually got him in the training video sort of doing those words. Maybe not. Stick it up.
My favorite voice is all I got is 75 cents.
Yeah, we know who that is.
No, ooh. Hold on,
let's see. You don't know who that is?
Yes. Let's see
Paul would know.
Let's see if Dre or Paul know who sang that. If anybody's for sure gonna know, it'd be Dre.
I've got the record nearby. I just can't get at it. All the records are over there, but they're all kind of like.
So, are you?
Come on, who's the other voice in it? The one who goes, "I do backflips, stand on my head."
Nancy?
Mr. Peebles, but no good.
You know, I want to know.
You want to know?
Yeah. Is it
Fucking
a
hopeless, hopeless, a lot of you. Hopeless.
Bozo the Clown?
Mr. Peebles.
Mr. Peebles.
Mr. Peebles is the guy he's talking to.
But all I got is
Mr.
75 cents. Isn't I thought that was a
Yeah,
girl.
that's right. That's a little girl. Yeah, she's talking to the other character. It's Magilla Gorilla. It's the Magilla Gorilla is like standing on his head. And the little girl's called OG.
Okay.
OG, and she says, I've only got 75 cents. And Mr. Peebles goes, I'll take it.
And
Now get this gorilla out of here.
That's with the MS-20 drums.
Yeah.
Those are the most wickedest drums ever. I think that.
Well, I'm interestingly enough, I'm collaborating with a couple of people at the moment who are making very similar drum noises. And it's really funny, like meeting a couple of, youngsters. And they're doing that whole kind of sort of shit. And I'm going, oh, yeah. And they said, would you like to collaborate? And I went, yeah, okay, fine, sure. You know how this? Yeah, I think I know how to do this. Yeah. It's kind of funny watching the youngsters come up with this shit again.
Well, how did you meet your collaborators?
I have a lot of, well, this is this whole Nillamox thing. When I got severed heads and broke its neck and got rid of it, the idea was then, okay, so I'm going to start this thing called Nillamox, which is basically move on, do new things. And I'm meeting all these people. And if they're fun and it's interesting, then fucking let's do it, and no, right. It's all under stupid, funny names. Like these guys are called, well, we're going to call ourselves Butch Crutch. And the CD cover has got these guys on it. These are the little collectible guys that, so you got that. Yeah. And we're going to basically, some of these guys are going to go out. If you want the CD, you get the CD, or you can get the little guys with it. But it's kind of like just fun. Have some fun. Do some fun shit. Stop being so fucking serious about everything. Every time it's like Severed Heads, it's like, oh, tell us about what happened in 1956. It's kind of like, I just want to do fun things.
I love that about you.
Well,
you're one of the most realistic guys in the world.
Like one of the first thing that came out on Nillamox was this thing called Solar Woodroach, right? And it's like Pachelbel's cannon sort of destroyed in all of these interesting ways. It's like, the whole Pachelbel cannon thing, using like this sort of synthesis thing to pull it apart. And it's called Solar Woodroach because my old mum used to call cockroaches. She used to say, oh, it's a woodroach. She came from, the nice part of town, a woodroach. And then we found a battery solar powered cockroach in a novelty shop, so it was called a Solar Woodroach. So yeah, that's why the band's called Solar Woodroach. Have fun with it. Shit.
I've had fun collaborating with the members of the Patreon that we are currently doing this live stream on.
Well, good.
Do you have a Patreon?
No.
So
I don't understand this young person shit.
Yeah, well, actually, I do have to say that it's really brought together a nice crew of people that I've been able to interact with, and found to be quite something you look forward to doing each week. It's kind of like almost, it's kind of like when you work together with a bunch of people at a job, or say you see them 3 days a week, and you come in and you have a rapport with everybody. It's kind of wonderful. I think that people would definitely be interested in one if you were to do it, because you have so many bits and things that people want to know and get, info. Anyways, I'm just speaking out loud.
Well, no, we see, like we're different. I think you're much better at all this public stuff. I'm more likely to write some bullshit and then have people ask me 10 years later what it meant. I don't like being on stage, and I don't really do the public thing well. It's fine being a university lecturer because you just play a university lecturer, right? But the whole live thing and dealing with the greet and meets and stuff, I'm not very good at it. That's all.
No, you actually are, and you just don't realize it, because you just defy. I don't know. Something about like seeing you guys and the sound and the warmth of your voice And
Wow.
it's, when I first heard you singing, and I thought like, wait a minute, it's going to take me a minute to get used to it, because it was like largely the samples and or tapes and stuff. And then when the singing started, I was like, it took me a while, but when I finally got it, it's like, I get it. It's like you've got this unique combination, and it's uniquely you. Tom Ellard, you're a modest guy. I'll never get you to take. He will never take a compliment, ladies and gentlemen. So
No,
I'll leave it without
it's a trick.
acknowledge it. Yeah, he won't never acknowledge it. So I'll let him hear it, and then we'll have to work with that.
Mm. Yeah.
But okay, well then I was also going to say, like, because you are teaching, essentially that is a stage, isn't it?
What's that? Sorry?
Well, you are teaching, correct? When you go into a university where you're teaching.
Yeah.
So essentially, isn't that a form of just a different form of stage?
Yeah, it is, but it's really it's formalized. You are the lecturer, and you have what your lecture is going to be today. And today's lecture is going to be on when I was the film guy, for example. What is documentary? How is documentary formed? Is there really a document? Why isn't it just it is entertainment, but it's like something like Tiger King, for example, is a documentary, but it's not really just a documentary. It's actually an entertainment. And so the lectures would be about something. They're not about me. I am the person who is presenting this information to people. And so it's a service. It's like the guy who fills your gas tank. It's not about you. You're just the stuff where it comes through. And you basically do your best to like teach people about things which are important without getting in the way. Later on, I became a manager, a program manager, which means I'm running a whole degree. And so I would have to deal with everything that was going on in that degree. So there's a lot of like management stuff going on, but I'm not really a managerial person. I'm like, this is what this week's about. Can I help you? That's it. Hello, can I help you? I'm your lecturer.
Would we expect you to be technical or philosophical?
They entwine. Technology is shit. Okay, here's a way of explaining it. Why is a CD the size it is? Do you know why?
No.
Okay, a CD is the same size as a cassette.
Oh, wow.
Because people used to have cassette players in their car. So you used to have a thing where you push the cassette in and eject it out. When you took that out of the car and put in a CD player, you had to actually be able to put the CD in and out in the same slot. I think probably could demonstrate. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is, how much can you fit on a CD? You can fit 74 minutes. You can fit more than that, but earlier on, you sit 74 minutes. So we went from an album, which was approximately 20 minutes per side, to something which was 74 minutes. What did that do to music? Music used to be 20 minutes and then turn it over and then the other 20 minutes. So you would have the A and the B. You would do the up and the down or the black and the white. It was this sort of two-way thing, and music was based around that. And then when you got a CD, people didn't know what to do with it for a while. They'd stick an album and a few singles on it. But then after a while, people started doing albums on 74 minutes long. So music comes from, or the venue of music comes from the technology. But the technology is also responding to the music. And this was what I did my thesis on, was this sort of shit. So for example, 8-track cartridge, do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
have
sure.
You have one? Yeah.
Oh yeah, not handy. I have one downstairs.
Right. So do you know Lou Reed's Metal Machine Music?
Yeah, great album.
Yeah, it's 4 sides.
Yeah.
That sort of run like that. Did you know that came out on 8-track cart?
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Metal Machine Music is 4 sides. It's designed for 8-track cartridge. You stick it in and the whole thing is a loop that just goes on and on over these 4 sides. Right? And it's kind of like, did the music come first and then the format, or did the format come first and the music? I don't know where philosophy and technology start and stop. And this is why I'm in media arts. This is why it's kind of interesting because, you know.
So you're saying Lou Reed wrote Metal Machine music for 8-track?
I don't know that for sure, but it fits perfectly. It's 4 sides, the same length, right?
Yes.
It's 4 sides, each the same length. And if he didn't write it for
Perfect.
it, that's right. Now, the only thing I have is a film about Jad Fair from a band called Half Japanese that was made a while ago. And in that film, he goes up and he asks Lou Reed, he shows Lou Reed an 8-track cut of Metal Machine music. And Lou Reed says, I've never seen one of those. I don't know. Does that mean he didn't see it finished or he didn't know about it or what? I don't know. That's all we've got.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Spencer Cox says 74 minutes was the longest recording of Beethoven's Ninth at the time of development of the CD. Sony
Yep.
and Philips agreed 74 would be a good compromise. Is that true?
Yeah. 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 It had to fit on that tape, and it had to be 74 minutes long because I think a dude from Sony, that was his favorite piece of music or some shit. So that's why CDs are 44.1 kilohertz sample, because at that sample rate, you could fit that much time on that much space. That's why they're not 48, they're 44.1. Why the fuck does 44.1? Because that fit. Tell me where the philosophy starts and stops here.
Yeah. I always thought it was so they could get bonus tracks out of us.
I wrote to Brian Eno once, and I said, you know, you did this CD of I can't remember what's the title of it now, but he did a CD that was like the length of a CD, and I said, do you design this piece of music to go on a CD? Because it was one of the first CDs ever released. They made a big, I think it was Thursday Afternoon, I think it was called.
Right.
It was one of the first CDs ever made, and it was Brian Eno, and he was like, he wrote back, he was very kind, he wrote back and he said, no, I wanted it to go on forever, but that wasn't available. Fine.
Who are some of your favorite artists now you speak of Brian Eno? When you listen to music?
Oh, I used to like Brian Eno a lot.
Used to?
Yeah. Well, it's not that it's like, you know, he was always supported by his collaborators. The thing that made Eno interesting was he always was collaborating with people. And when he was collaborating with people like Phil Collins on the drums and or David Byrne or something like that, he's really good at lighting a fire under other people. But recently, for whatever reason, he's decided to like not do that. He can do it all himself. And he can't really light a fire under himself. I think that's probably what's going on. He really does need to be in a group of people. But the band I've lost complete respect for over the years was Kraftwerk.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because they were very important band when I was a kid, you know, back in 1975 or something, you know, or 76 or that period. It was like really important, but they just turned out to be like, you know, they ran out of juice pretty quickly, I guess is the nicest way of putting it. And you know, don't seem to, like, that was always my worry is like, so when Kraftwerk would play live recently, they'd have the same videos that they'd made like 20 years ago. And that was the reason why I'm always like when Severed Heads was a thing, remaking, re-recording, rescoring. Everything had to be constantly, every time you saw us play live, you got a new version of all tracks, right? Every time.
Yeah.
Because otherwise not, what's the point?
Yeah.
Who do I like? I like Mouse on Mars a lot.
Oh,
you
nice.
heard them?
Yeah.
They're good. I've got into the whole glitch thing for a while, but I'm coming out the other side of that. And I don't know, I'm more into film soundtracks at the moment for obvious reasons.
Brian Eno, Chris Theron says Brian Eno has an app, Reflections, that is a procedural generated music that goes on forever and ever and changes over time. Kind of neat. You ever thought about doing something like that?
Well, his first one was Bloom. He's done a few since then. He works with another fella called Childers, I think. Um, no, I want to make games. I want people to be able to navigate through. I mean, the thing about a game is like it's an album. It's still
Right.
an artist created thing. But there's a bit in Snow Globe, for example, where there's a bridge and you're walking down a mountain and there's an electrical generator over to one side of that bridge. And as you walk towards the bridge, you don't actually realize it's there. And then you hear the sound out of one ear and you turn around and you hear this electrical generator and you get really close to it. And then the music of that. There's another part where there's there's a wind farm at the top of the hill. And there's a certain spot that you can stand where the sound of each of the propellers on the wind have this kind of like really interesting harmonic effect. I don't tell you to stand there, but if you do, you'll hear it. And I think that's why games are interesting, because you are free, but the musician has placed things that you can freely engage with and find interesting, you know.
Is this a world that you'll design completely on your own? So in other words, you'll do the programming, or
Yeah,
you'll
I've done a couple of them. Yeah. Yeah.
You'll collaborate with designers on this on the dream game, or you'll do it all yourself?
The new one is getting the new one's been going for about 2 years now.
All
And
yourself?
I've still, yeah, and I'm gonna have to call in the troops, I think. It's not getting anywhere. It's too complicated.
Say what it's about?
Well, I'll put this egg thing down. I've been playing with that. Okay, so shit. It's very complicated. There used to be world fairs. There was expos. Remember Expo 86?
Yeah, I worked at it. Greatest job I
Right.
ever had.
Right. So there's been expos going for years, right? And an expo is, on the face of it, a way of showing off your place, your country, your creativity. Canada had one, which was in Montreal, which was a quite important one. But
Expo
before
6.
that, yeah, there was a huge one in New York in 1939. And what's really interesting about a world fair is it's white and bright and beautiful and these tall white buildings, and it's all science and technology and stuff. But there's always a fun fair. There's always a dark side. There's always this sort of pretty, beautiful thing. And then they go over a little bridge and there's a strip show over the other side. And, you know, a midget town and a carnival thing, right? There's all the dark, nasty shit over one side and all the white and beautiful stuff at the other. Now, Salvador Dali actually had a building in the 1939 World Fair. The Surrealists had their own World Fair in 1938. And so there was a period of time in the 30s, which you've got Hitler and Stalin and all that sort of stuff going on, and all this sort of beautiful white buildings, all this sort of lovely, tall, statuesque stuff over one side. And over the other side, this insane, dark, surreal, dangerous, pornographic realm. And there's a whole thing that comes from that, where you can build this space where you show these two sides. And imagine, like, if you've ever been to a fun fair, like imagine Coney Island back in the day.
Right.
Imagine, you know, what Disneyland could have been if Walt Disney wasn't such a Puritan, but there's still kind of like scary shit mixed up in Disneyland, you know. So this is a space where there's lots of really interesting things that you can put there, and people can walk around and they can see really whacked out things. And I really wanted to make one end of it be like absolutely dark and the other side of it absolutely light, and have this sort of like space that you can wander around in and get frightened the shit out of in different ways. But the more you read about this shit, I mean, I've got like, hell, is it like, I've got this design book, hang on. This is This is the manual.
Wow. Look
Yeah.
at that. Something like that actually exists.
Oh yeah. Oh fuck yeah. And it's
Look at that.
it's serious. It's serious shit, right? This is serious shit. This is not like la la la.
Wow.
This is like there's only about a few pictures in the whole damn thing. I can't find it. There's not so many. Point being is like theme park design is a serious, complicated business. Now here's one that Tara gave me. Hang on, I'm back with it. History of the amusement park, right?
Wow.
And this one starts in 1200.
Wow. Didn't know it had such a history.
King Henry.
Wow, incredible. They had the
yeah, in the year 1122, the first amusement park.
So did they go light and dark?
It got more and more extreme over time. It was very dark in the old days. You know, they would execute criminals as one of the attractions. You know, all the hangings and stuff like that. You take your kids and get some popcorn and watch some bad guys being hanged by the neck.
It seems like odd to think that Australia doesn't actually have an official theme park, does it?
We do actually. They're not very notable.
What is
we have Dreamland. Dreamland. Yeah, Warner Brothers up the coast. Nothing special, unfortunately. We have, but see, in Sydney, we have a Luna Park, and it's been there since 1939. Pardon me? 1935. Corrected. Wow. 1935. I've even got my hat somewhere. Anyway, it's still got many of the original attractions since that time. And so this is a growing up experience. If you grew up in Sydney, you grew up with Luna Park in Sydney. But if you've got Melbourne, like Tara grew up in Melbourne, she's got the Luna Park that was there since 1921, I think. Pardon me? 1915, you reckon? Yeah.
Wow.
So we have over here things from the 1930s and 20s that most of Melbourne's gone. But a lot of Sydney is still running. And so you can go there and you can see things that were built back in the 30s. And so growing up, this is like, okay, what's going on with the 30s? What's happening in the 30s? Why is the 30s so kind of vibrant with all of this kind of light and dark and scary shit, you know?
Yeah, right.
Doing albums is fun, but, you know, I think this is more fun in a way.
Charlie Smith says, incidentally, Dali was a phalangist, which what got him expelled from Brayton's inner circle, or Tone's inner circle. Paul Kaiju, hi Tara. Hi Tara, are you back there?
Paul says hello. She says hi, Paul. I think you're supposed to make an appearance.
Supposed to say hi for a brief minute.
Yeah, brief minute.
The ladies were going to join.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to put the hat on, though.
Yeah.
Have a hat, otherwise you can't hear anything.
Hi.
There she is, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing?
Good.
What are you doing? Oh, I love the hat, Tom.
I'm paying home homage to you.
See if I can bring my wife in here. Here we are.
Hi.
So
I'm like hot and sweaty. There's no AC and it's like 100,000 degrees.
Yeah, it's really hot in here today. So.
Oh, it started to get wintry here already. So.
Is it? You know, that's something that I kind of would like right now, because it did the thing where it got to be 100 degrees like in one day, and now it's been like 100 for 3 days in a row, and we're kind of already over it.
Are you swimming?
Brianna jumped in already, but the first time
I'm about to jump in right after this.
She's about to jump in.
I had to open the window.
But
it's 80 degrees in our house right now.
It's 80, yeah.
Or
80
at our house. But it was interesting that Rihanna was at the supermarket one night, and she just ran into Tom and Tara.
Oh God, no, it wasn't. It was right before our trip to.
It was at the chemist. Was it at the chemist?
No,
When I
no,
met
it was
Rihanna.
at
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Friday.
Bumped into
Yeah,
Friday or
Doesn't
something.
matter what store it is, but you know,
Yeah,
it was at the
Yeah.
store. And
at the store. Yeah.
just the smallest world theory of all is that Rihanna runs into Tom and,
No,
and
no.
Tara.
So the funniest thing is, I'm like going to go check out. I get all my stuff, like my vitamins and everything, and getting prepared for Japan. And then all of a sudden I hear this accent. I kind of look down the aisle. I'm like, I think that's Tom, but I'm not sure. He's smelling Dr. Pepper chapstick.
that sounds like Tom.
I was like, Tom. I said, Tom Ellard, and he didn't say anything. He was shy, and you said, yes, that's him. And I said,
Yeah.
"What?"
Dobbed him in.
I said, I'm his wife, and I knew you guys were going to be in town, but how strange. So call Kevin.
Meant to be. It was meant to be.
It
And
was.
you guys were there studying theme parks because we lived
We
right
were.
next to Universal Studios, and Tom had alerted me. So I mean, of course, we had an idea that you were coming, and we did some Halloween shopping the next day. But
We did, and I've still
But
got
you
that
don't have
mask
that.
in my room, and it's fantastic. It's the best mask I've ever bought. Michael Myers mask.
so they don't have Halloween in Australia either. I mean, what's the deal?
Oh, we do. Oh, yeah, we do. We do now, but it's not
Oh.
as big as in America.
No,
But they
no
do have
Halloween
it.
stores though.
There've been a few Halloween since where I've put that mask on and just stood in the doorway at home. But I'm terrified a little kid's going to go past and I'll scare them. So it never lasts that long, but I love standing there just with the door open with that mask on. It's my favorite thing.
So hot in here. Well, we'd like to thank you guys. Thanks, Tom and Tara from Sydney.
We love you. Go grocery.
We love you too.
Tom, stick your face in again.
Stick your face, man.
Tom, we want to.
They just.
We love you to death, Tom Ellard. Thank you so much for this evening and doing this. And once again, thank you to the Patreon family for.
I think it's
supporting.
the best chat that you've had.
Oh, thank you. If you think it was a nice chat, then thank these guys. Tom, I still think we could talk for hours and hours and hours, and maybe perhaps we should tune in again soon with more. But thank you to you guys.
Okay. Have a great day. Bye. Stay safe.
Bye.
I don't know how to end it, so you might see
End
us
it.
for a second.
And
You throw the computer in a bin.
oh, and
We love you, Tom.
Right.